I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Wednesday, going on back-to-back days this week since I am getting ready to head out of town tomorrow. Dennis, you got finally a break in the rain, so you guys got to practice for baseball. Was it good to be out on the field?
It was nice. The big fella, he did a little pitching tonight, played a little infield. Our first official game is Monday. We got 3 games next week. Starts a stretch of like 12 games in 27 days. And then we're off to Boston for a week, taking the Red Sox versus the Reds while we're out there. Gonna go up to Salem and visit my wife's family there at Salem's lot, you know. I'm just kidding. My wife doesn't come from a family of witches.
Well, if she does, they're successful witches because they made it this far.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are getting into the stretch of the year where we're going to start taking trips. I'll be gone in June, so we'll be out a week. Dennis will be gone at the beginning of July, so we'll be out. But in between, we're going to be doing shows. We are wrapping up the AFC running back rooms today with our top 8. We looked at the bottom 8 yesterday, so you can look that up on the podcast platforms. Dennis, you kick off. Your number 8 is the team I ended with yesterday, and that is the New England Patriots. Just to refresh on their roster, Ramondre Stevenson, Travion Henderson, who Dennis may be familiar with from Ohio State University, Antonio Gibson, Travion Williams, Lan Larison, and Terrell Jennings. And I will say, it looks like our lads updated their depth charts today because I've noticed a couple of players have switched position even from when we talked about them yesterday. So that'll be interesting to watch as we go forward. But Dennis, why do you have the Patriots at 8 kicking off the top half of the AFC?
So the Patriots were a hot mess last year under Jared Mayo. They've got an up-and-coming quarterback. They brought in Mike Vrabel, who is a hard-nosed coach. He's kind of in that Mike Tomlin, I'm okay winning ugly kind of mode. They brought back Josh McDaniel as the OC. We'll see what happens with him with not being under the watchful eye of Bill Belichick. You know, we've seen each time he's went out on his own as a head coach, it hasn't been great. So, but I'm optimistic. They still don't have a great wide receiver core. So they're going to have to lean on the running backs. They brought in Travion Henderson. They still have Ramondre Stevenson, who underperformed after signing a contract extension. But Stevenson is a pretty good back. He's got good size. He's 5'11", 6 foot, 225. You know, he had 1,000 yards. He's had a season with over 50 or 60 catches.
Yeah, that was in 2022. He had over 1,000 yards rushing and was a big time receiver.
And one of their big weaknesses was their offensive line. They went out and signed Morgan Moses at right tackle. And despite being as just about as old as the conventional Moses. He's still a pretty good right tackle. They added Garrett Bradbury at center, who at this point I don't know how he's not an elite talent anymore. He's still a pretty good center. Drafted Will Campbell, put him at left tackle, and despite all the talk about his short arms, the guy dominated in the SEC. Drafted Jared Wilson, a third rounder. They brought in who's the backup to Bradbury at center. So they invested in the offensive line. They've got a good quarterback. And if Stephon Diggs and Mac Hollins, Demario Douglas, Kyle Williams, Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, kind of an underwhelming group. It's a lot of wide receiver 2-3 guys. Maybe Stephon Diggs gets back, but to form, but there's still some questions about him coming back from injury. Kayshon Boutte came on a little bit last year. Kyle Williams, really good speed, suspect hands. So there's still a lot of stuff there. But their top 3 running backs with Stevenson, Henderson, and Antonio Gibson, on paper, I think they have pretty good depth there. How will it shake out? For fantasy, for dynasty, obviously Henderson's the guy you want to roster. He's going as the, I think most often, probably the RB3 in rookie drafts right now, behind Genty and Omarion Hampton. Phenomenal pass blocker. I think he's gonna immediately get the lion's share of the passing down work. He's also a good running back when it comes to just running the ball. The biggest knock on Henderson is he can get dinged up. We've seen that at OSU. He gets dinged up a little bit, misses some time. But when you have depth like Antonio Gibson behind him and Ramondre Stevenson beside him, I think that just bodes well for New England. And to me, it felt it's a lot deeper room, a lot more talented room than the Cincinnati Bengals.
So my number 8, I went with the Las Vegas Raiders on the depth chart for them. They drafted Ashton Jeanty in the first round. They picked up Raheem Mostert as a free agent from Miami. They still have Sincere McCormick, who sincerely was a free agent, signed out of college in 22. Zamir White, who was a 4th-round pick in 22. Dylan Lobby, who was a 6th-round pick in 24. And Chris Collier, who was a college free agent in 24. Many of those guys were there last year. Mostert, a fine veteran depth and role player at this stage in his career, is the addition, but they're here for me because of Ashton Jeanty. He had 374 carries, 2,601 yards, averaged 7 yards per carry, 29 touchdowns, caught 23 passes for 138 yards and another touchdown, so 30 total touchdowns. That was just 1 year in college. That was just last year in college. He had almost 4,800 yards rushing and 50 touchdowns in his 3-year college career and caught 80 passes. I think he's going to be a real game changer. I thought about whether I was going to put them higher, but it's his first year. So I felt like this was a decent spot for me, but that is why I have them at 8. You went one notch higher and had them at 7. I'm guessing it's Jeanty that you're into as well.
Yeah, for me, it's he's the clear 101 in rookie drafts, irrespective of format. This year in rookie drafts, you're taking him over Cam Ward, you're taking him over Travis Hunter, over Ted McMillan, unless you're trying to be, wild. I'm a wild man. I'm going to not take Ashton Jeanty.
I mean, there was
And-
some arguments in Superflex if you were desperate at quarterback that you might go with Cam Ward because of the positional deficiencies there.
Well, the deficiency is in Cam Ward versus Ashton Genty when it comes to prospects. I mean, Ward, yeah, he's the number one quarterback in this class, but he would have been what? QB6, QB5 in last year's class?
Probably 7, QB7.
You think he would have been behind both Nix and Penix?
Yes.
Yeah.
I still have them behind both Nix and Penix. So,
well, we have a season of Bo Nix where he finished QB6, and we've seen a little bit of Michael Penix. So it makes a little bit of sense because they have a year of NFL tape, for lack of a better word. But yeah, I mean, Ashton Genty, he's a 5'11", 5'10", 209-pound back with incredible contact balance, very good speed, catches the ball well. He's shown that he can be a workhorse back. And he goes to a team where Raheem Mostert is his competition. And he's, Mostert and I, we both just got our Golden Buckeye discount cards for being old. So I like Mostert, honestly. I think he's going to be a great backup and mentor to Ashton Genty. I think Mostert's better than McCormick and Zamir White, even at this stage of his career. But Mostert also has a long history of missing games. So I think, you look over the last couple of years, Mostert's been fairly healthy. He had a really great season in Miami, but you're only going to ride that so long. I think this team, I've got them at 7 on the shoulders of Ashton Genty.
Yeah, for me at 7, I have a team that you had a little bit lower, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. On their roster, Chase Brown, Zach Moss, Samaje Perine came back to the Bengals, had been there previously before going to Denver and then Kansas City. They drafted Taj Brooks. They have Gary Brightwell, Kendall Milton, and Quali Conley. Chase Brown, as you mentioned yesterday, took over probably about the midpoint in the season, started only 10 games, ended up with 990 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns, averaged more than 4 yards a carry, also had 54 receptions. I think he will be the leader in the backfield all the way through this season. I think that this is going to be just another step forward for him. But behind him, I actually like their depth more than the combination of the two teams that I had below them. Moss, we've seen him take over and lead backfields on a couple of different teams at times when he's been called in to step up. I think he fits that role better than maybe being a feature back on a team. And I actually really like Samaje Perine coming back to this situation. He was a great contributor to them when we last saw him there in 22. He was a great contributor in Denver in 23, a great contributor in Kansas City in 24. He is a good pass blocker. He is a good 2-minute drill offense kind of guy to go out there to clear the way, to make receptions, to make some plays. I think that gives them a pretty dynamic set of weapons in the backfield, and they already have an impeccable pass offense. People are so worried about those receivers and tight ends and everything that opens up some more space for running backs to operate. We saw Joe Mixon kind of quietly kill it in that role for years, and I think Brown is poised to step in there. So I have them at 7 for me. At number 6, you and I both have the same team, and that is the Indianapolis Colts. On their roster, Jonathan Taylor leading the way. Then they picked up Khalil Herbert, who actually finished last year with the Bengals, but was with the Bears to start as their kind of number 2. They drafted DJ Giddens. Maybe he has a chance to rise up and take that number 2 slot. Then they have Tyler Goodson, Salvon Ahmed, and Ulysses Bentley IV, who wins the name contest so far in this episode, but maybe not the role contest. For me, this is really about Jonathan Taylor. Even last year when their pass offense was more of a rumor. 303 carries, 1,431 yards, 11 touchdowns. Only had 18 receptions. We've seen him in the past have 30, 40 receptions. That would require more of a robust passing offense. I really like him in this offense. I think they have some decent depth behind him with Herbert, who is a good spot starter and fill-in player, and Giddens, who's an interesting upside rookie. But Taylor was enough for me to salt them away at the number 6 slot.
Yeah, this feels like a team that, for fantasy, a lot of us are pulling for Daniel Jones because we think it's going to help the passing game. And maybe it will. We've watched Daniel Jones. Okay. So if it helps the passing game, that's really, really bad news for Anthony Richardson. This offense is going to run through Jonathan Taylor, and 300 plus carries looks like it's in the books for him again this year. He's a big back and he can carry the load, but he does get dinged up occasionally. Khalil Herbert has kind of stepped up every time he's been called on over the past 3 or 4 seasons. He's kind of explosive, but he's not overly big. DJ Giddens is, one of the dynasty darlings when you're taking, throwing darts in the 3rd round, late 2nd and 3rd round of fantasy dynasty drafts. Tyler Goodson will be a special teamer who filled in a little bit last year. Goodson becomes the RB3 if Giddens can't, take care of protecting the quarterback. I think Goodson becomes the RB3. And then, Matt Bruning's, one of his boys, Salvan Ahmed, is there. I don't know that he even makes the team. I think Bentley ends up being a practice squad player. But this team is going to run through Jonathan Taylor, regardless of who the quarterback is.
And we have the same team at number 5, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers. They drafted Omarion Hampton in the 1st round. They signed Najee Harris from Pittsburgh to a 1-year deal. They have Hassan Haskins back. They have Kamani Vidal, who was a late-round pick last year, who is back. Jarrett Patterson, who they picked up last year, is back. And they added Raheem Sanders as a college free agent. I think this is really about the top 2 guys. Najee Harris, a guy that Jim Harbaugh kicked the tires with when they were in college, never quite made it work. All he's done since he came to the NFL is have at least 1,000 yards in each of his 4 professional seasons. Now moves over. Omarion Hampton, 1,500 plus yards each of his last 2 years at North Carolina and 30 total touchdowns. They've said they're going to be the 1-2 punch. I like that 1-2 punch a lot, not as a Broncos fan because I don't really want to have to play them, but as a fantasy fan, I like that pairing a lot. They were 5 for me.
Yeah, Hampton is widely regarded as the RB2 in this class. I really love the landing spot for Najee Harris, and then they drafted Omarion Hampton. That kind of put a damper on my excitement there. Hassan Haskins is, he's a RB3-4. That's what he is. That's what he's going to be. Kamani Vidal flashed a little bit in the passing game last year. He's a smaller back, but I think Hampton provides enough in the passing game and Harris provides enough in the passing game that they could be kind of interchangeable. But I think either one of them could also be a workhorse back for you. And so it feels like it may be a frustrating season for Omarion Hampton drafters because Najee Harris is there. Just be patient. He's on a 1-year contract. For me, it feels like, next year's RB2 is probably Raheem Sanders. I don't think they bring back Najee. I think he'll want to go somewhere where he maybe can compete and will want probably more money than they want to give him. Sanders, early in his college career, was very explosive and earned the nickname Rocket, and then he got injured, and it seems that he's taken a little time gaining that explosiveness back. Whether it fully comes back or not, I don't know. But he's a big back. He's one of these 6 foot or 5'11", 220 pounders, 217-pound backs. He's got good speed. We'll see. I think he ran like because I went on Kentley Platt's relative athletic score comparison tool when I was looking at these backs, and it was comparing Raheem Sanders to Michael Burner Turner, who is a former bench rider in the Chargers organization, who went on to Atlanta and had a stellar career because he had LaDainian Tomlinson in front of him. One of the big differences, though, is that while Sanders is big at 217 pounds, Michael Turner was very big at 237 pounds. And Sanders was a little bit faster, but it was quite an interesting thing to take a look at. But yeah, Hampton and Harris, I think they're going to provide a lot of stability and interchangeability at the top of the depth chart for the Chargers.
You and I also have the same team at number 4, and that is the Miami Dolphins. This is starting a big run for the AFC East, which seems to have some pretty solid RB rooms. Devon Achane is number 1. He was a 3rd-round pick in 23. Jalen Wright, listed as a backup, was a 4th-round pick last year. They brought in Alexander Madison, the veteran, to add depth. They took Ollie Gordon in the 6th round this year, and they have Nate Noel. Achane, I think we like seeing him unleashed. Last year, Miami's offense was a little bit of a dumpster fire, but in 203 carries, he had 907 yards and 6 touchdowns, going 4.5 yards a carry. Really kind of kept up and looked good there. Also caught 78 passes for 592 yards and 6 more touchdowns. Kind of in that, Alvin Kamara kind of role. He can run. He is doing a lot of rushing yards, but a huge weapon in the passing game. Jalen Wright, as a rookie, only saw 68 carries, kind of was splitting that backup role with Raheem Mostert, who's gone. Did have 249 yards on those carries, caught 3 passes. But his last year in college at Tennessee, he had 1,000 yards rushing, averaged more than 7 yards per carry. Ollie Gordon last year for Oklahoma State had 880 yards and 13 touchdowns, had 1,700 yards and 21 touchdowns the year before. So we know he is capable of putting up some numbers. Alexander Madison, kind of that veteran depth. I like their overall group. I really like the role that Achane is settling into. If Miami can be a better, more stable offense, maybe a healthier season from Tua, or if Quinn Ewers or Zach Wilson provides more as a backup than what they saw at times behind Tua last year, I think that could be good for Achane in this offense. I think he could get to 1,000 yards.
Yeah, this is all going to come down to how well balanced is the offense and can they stay healthy. It seems like it's set up for Tua to go back to that timing, shorter passing offense with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and Jonnu Smith, lots of yards after the catch, and then lots of passes to Devon Achane. He was RB5 last year, RB6 in points per game. Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon both bring really good size and good explosiveness. Madison is that guy that, we see it a lot in quarterback rooms where you've got you've got a starter, and then you've got this grizzled veteran backup, and then this young running back this young quarterback that you're developing. And if your starter goes down in a game, you put in that grizzled veteran. But if you got a week or two to get somebody ready, you're going with the young guy with the upside because you can get him ready. That kind of feels like what's going on with like Ollie Gordon and Jalen Wright here. I think if Achane gets injured mid-game, I think this year we'll see substantially more Jalen Wright than we did last year, but we would also see a good helping of Alexander Madison. But you give him another week, and I think we see some more Ollie Gordon getting in there, taking a bigger chunk of the pie, and Madison stepping back a little bit more. Wright's a pretty good sized explosive back. I think he kind of fills that Raheem Mostert role that they had. He did produce in a couple games last year when given the opportunity, but the backfield revolves around the explosiveness of Devon Achane, his ability to catch passes, his ability to take any touch at any time all the way. He's kind of, the back I compared Devon Achane to when he was coming out was Warwick Dunn. You don't see a lot of 188, 190 pound running backs that last a long time and that get a significant volume. Warwick Dunn was really the last guy like that. We've seen some guys that were a little bigger, 200 pounders, like Jamal Charles and Priest Holmes. And we see that with guys like Jahmyr Gibbs that are around that 200 pound mark. But Achane is really smaller at that 100. He was 188, 189 pounds coming out of college, but he's able to avoid taking big hits, and he's super explosive. They get him in space in the passing game. So yeah, this is a really explosive backfield.
Now, for you and I, we have the same two teams at 2 and 3, but in a slightly different order. Those two teams are in the AFC East. I'm going to call out their depth charts. That's the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. The Bills have James Cook on leading the backfield. Behind him, Ty Johnson, who is probably more of a pass specialist. Ray Davis, who spelled Cook and looked pretty good. They have Darrington Evans, who a decent special teams player, and an interesting college free agent from last year in Frank Gore Jr. The Jets have Breece Hall. He went in the same draft as Cook, 2022. They're both going into contract years. They have a pair of rookies from last year, Braylon Allen, who was taken in the 4th round, Isaiah Davis, who was taken in the 5th round. Then they added a special teamer in Kenny Nwangawu. They have an interesting college free agent from this year in Donovan Edwards. And they also picked up Zach Evans, who was at one time with the Rams. You have the Bills 3 and the Jets 2. I have the Jets 3 and the Bills 2. What separates these teams for you?
So, I'm a little concerned about James Cook and his holdout. But also, James Cook is another one of these 200 pounders. And he is a good inside runner, but he's just not very big. He's a really good pass catcher. They like Ray Davis. They like Ty Johnson. Ultimately, though, I think the talent of Breece Hall and Braylon Allen is just a little like I think Hall is better than Cook. And I think Braylon Allen is better than Davis and Ty Johnson. And Isaiah Davis last year showed he's probably at least as good as Ty Johnson. And so they just give me I feel a little more comfortable with the talent level of the Jets running backs. I like James Cook a lot. He's had a couple years of really nice finishes for fantasy. We're one more year of Breece Hall being removed from his knee injury. There are some concerns with the offense. What's it gonna look like under Justin Fields? Is it gonna be super quarterback run heavy? Is Fields gonna just face plant? Is he not the guy? Are they rebuilding again? They've got a new head coach, new offensive coordinator. What's that really going to look like? So there are some concerns there. But ultimately, I think talent-wise, I think the Jets are just a little bit better than the Bills backs.
Yeah, and you mentioned being a little concerned about James Cook's holdout. I'm a little concerned about every press conference they have Aaron Glenn saying they have 3 backs in New York and they're going to use them equally. For fantasy, that's probably more of a concern for me than when we're rating as backfields. But I will say I don't think there's a lot for me that separates these two teams. I think they're very close. They're built very close to the same. You talked about, is Justin Fields going to be a run threat at quarterback? It would be hard to have a bigger running threat at quarterback than what Buffalo has to deal with. But for you, it makes sense. You like Hall and Allen and Isaiah Davis a little bit better. I like James Cook a little bit better than Breece Hall, and I like Ray Davis a little bit better than Braylon Allen. And Ty Johnson, I think, is a more dynamic role player than what they have in Isaiah Davis. So for me, it was exactly the inverse, and that was exactly the reason that I went that way. And if you looked at their stat lineups from last year, that bore out. The Bills had each of their three running backs finished a little bit better stats wise than each of their three Jets counterparts. I think they're a little bit better. They fit the offense better. I think there's more of a run focus in the way Buffalo plays, probably because they don't have anything approaching a Garrett Wilson in their pass catching group. I like Khalil Shakir just fine, but Buffalo has decided to really emphasize the run, and Allen and James Cook combined for over 1,500 yards and 28 touchdowns last year. That is how they want to win, and I think it's worked pretty well for them. Breece Hall, I liked him coming out. Yeah, he had that injury. I don't think it was the injury that held him back so much last year. It's whether he didn't jive with that coaching staff, which maybe a change of coaching staff will do some good. They certainly seem to be putting out messages that they don't really see him as their long-term future and aren't going to be signing him beyond this year, because you wouldn't start out talking about how great it is to have three running backs that are all the same if you thought Breece Hall was going to be your guy in the future. And they certainly played like that last year. There were times where they just rotated him out and put the other guys in because they thought that was their better option. And that gives me a little bit of pause. We talked about with Dallas, with Javonte Williams, there was a player that I really liked coming out that I always thought had plenty of talent, that had upside at times, that just never clicked and never put it all together and never really capitalized on that. I'm worried that's where we're going to end up with Breece Hall, and maybe it's a Jets thing, because the Jets Breece Hall would not be the first dynamic player at a position that the Jets didn't know what to do with. And maybe he'll be better when he goes on to another team. But right now, I have just a slight separation between them. Our number one team, both of us have the same number one team, and I don't think it's super surprising. All three probably of these top teams in the AFC have some kind of running element with their quarterback. That's certainly true of our number one team, which is the Baltimore Ravens. On the depth chart for the Ravens, they have King Derrick Henry, who they picked up in free agency last year, who signed another extension, hoping to end his career with the Ravens. Justice Hill, who was a great role player for them last year, a guy I know you're high on, Keaton Mitchell, who had kind of a lost year to injury last year, but looking to bounce back. Rasheen Ali, and then Marcus Major and Son Natoa, who are college free agents. Really, they're here for me because of Derrick Henry. We made a lot about Saquon Barkley. He had a 2,000-yard season. He was incredibly impressive. Derrick Henry, not far behind, 1,921 yards rushing, 16 touchdowns, only 19 receptions. But when you're doing that in the run game, it doesn't really matter. Their kind of passing specialist is Justice Hill. He had 228 yards rushing last year, but caught 42 passes out of the backfield. I thought they made a fairly dynamic team, both on the field and for fantasy. Keaton Mitchell, I had liked what we saw in flashes at the end of 23. We'll see if he can kind of get back there in 25. But Derrick Henry, probably the best back in all of the AFC. Makes sense that he would be on top.
I mean, he's the Optimus Prime of running backs. I mean, he's bigger, faster, better, stronger than everybody. And, if you look up built different in the dictionary, there's a picture of Derrick Henry. And as much as I want to be able to say, oh, well, he's 30 and this, they're giving him contracts. He's producing. You see it on the field. When they get behind, do they pull him? Yeah. If they're behind, they're going to put Justice Hill in. Hill is their change of pace back, and he's effective at it. Keaton Mitchell had a couple games a couple years ago where he looked really explosive. Then he had a knee injury. Rasheen Ali seems to have some potential, but he's going to be buried as long as the three guys ahead of him are healthy. But yeah, it's the Derrick Henry show, and there's not a whole heck of a lot you can argue with when it comes to ranking the running back room there.
Well, that'll do it for AFC running backs in general. I don't think the running back rooms are quite as dynamic. There are some fun ones at the top of the AFC, but if you were mashing these AFC and NFC together, I know I would still have Detroit as one. I would probably still have Atlanta as number two. Would you consider putting Baltimore over one or both of those teams?
No, I think I would keep. I think I would have Baltimore 3.
Yep.
The Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery as a duo, I think are still probably the tops. Bijan Robinson, phenomenal talent. I think he's a better all-around back than Derrick Henry, and he's. Maybe he's only 95% of the runner Derrick Henry is, or 90% the runner Derrick Henry is. But he's 200% the receiver Derrick Henry is. So I think as I like Derrick Henry and I don't hate having him on my teams, but if I'm sitting there and my options are Gibbs or Henry or Robinson or Henry, I'm taking Gibbs or Robinson over him.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for us today. That'll do it for us this week. We will be back on Tuesday. We are going to start looking at pass catchers, and this is both receivers and tight ends, which is an important distinction because there are quite a few teams where the tight end makes a big factor when you're looking at the overall pass catchers. We are going to start with the NFC. We will do the bottom 8 teams in the NFC, so that's going to be an interesting side-by-side comparison. Dennis, people have a little bit of a longer weekend and a wait for us to get back because I'm on a trip and you got baseball games in there. What might they do to fill that void?
They can do what we do. They can go to their favorite podcast platform, hit that search bar, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, give us a subscribe, give us a like, listen to our vast catalog of shows. If you go back far enough and then listen to us now, you'll see just how much we've improved as broadcasters.
We hope. We certainly hope. That'll do it for us today. I hope you guys have a wonderful extended weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday to talk pass catchers in the NFC.